So today in page number 10 of Hindu, there's an article about Amphan Cyclone. Odisha braces for Amphan impact. So in this context, we will try to analyze tropical cyclones topic with respect to prelims and mains. Tropical cyclones, right? So there are basically two types of cyclones, tropical and temperate. Tropical cyclones are nothing but those cyclones which occur between 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south latitudes. Okay, so basically in the tropical regions. Temperate cyclones occur in the temperate regions, that is beyond 30 degrees north and beyond 30 degrees south. So now we are primarily focusing on tropical cyclones phenomenon. So starting with what is a cyclone, there are some important observations and features with respect to a cyclone. So we need to know these terms. So whenever we talk about a cyclone, we have to think about a very low pressure system. A very low pressure system. This is the first point. Wherever a cyclone occurs, there will be a very low pressure system there. And the second one is very high winds revolving around it. Very high winds revolving around it. So these are two important features. That is, there should be a very low pressure system developed and there should be very high winds revolving around it. These are the two important features of cyclone. And the other features are violent storms. Violent storms. There will be violent storms and very heavy rainfall. Very heavy rainfall. And also there are violent winds. We have already discussed it. And storm surge. Storm surge. STORM. Storm surge. This is one term which you might have come across in few geography books. The storm surge, to broadly speak about, is nothing but a rise in the sea level due to cyclones. Rise in the sea level due to cyclones. As we have already discussed, cyclones bring huge rainfall and heavy winds with it. So when cyclones bring such huge rainfall and heavy winds with it, obviously there are chances for sea level to rise. This is known as storm surge, right? So violent storms, violent winds, very heavy rainfall, storm surge, and a very low pressure system. These are some important features of a cyclone. Whenever we are asked to describe a cyclone, these are the things which we'll talk about, right? So now coming to some important terms related to cyclone. Now to explain the phenomenon of cyclone in easiest possible way, it's nothing but it origins in the sea. It starts in the sea. A low pressure develops in the sea that gradually turns into a swirling effect and it creates a cyclone. That cyclone slowly reaches the coastal states and it impacts those coastal states, right? This is in general, easily speaking, the phenomenon of cyclone. Now related to this cyclone, we have some important terms. The first term is moisture. Moisture. So moisture is the complete strength for a cyclone. How much moisture a cyclone has, that much strong the cyclone is and that much impact will be on the states, the coastal states, wherever the cyclone occurs. And also eye of the cyclone. So this is a part of the cyclone. Now what is this eye? EYE, eye. So this eye of the cyclone is nothing but the central region of the cyclone. You can imagine cyclone as a conical shape. A conical shape. So the central region of the cyclone is known as eye of the cyclone. So that region's speciality is it's completely calm. So basically we imagine cyclone, we imagine huge winds and heavy rainfall, right? But this eye region of the cyclone, which is the central region of the cyclone, is completely calm. It's completely calm. This is an important point because in prelims they might confuse us. Like because eye of a cyclone is related to cyclone, we should not think it has so much rainfall and winds. There is absolutely no precipitation or very less precipitation, very less rainfall and almost no force winds in this region. This is eye of the cyclone, right? Next, eye wall of the cyclone. The eye wall of the cyclone is the region which we usually observe. That is that circulating thing, the conical shape which we draw when we draw a cyclone. That is basically the eye wall, the region which is surrounding the eye of the cyclone. That is the eye wall of the cyclone. Now this is responsible for the huge winds and the huge clouds which we observe when there is a cyclone. That is primarily due to this eye wall region of the cyclone, right? Eye wall region. So eye and eye wall, these are two important parts of the cyclone. These are the two important parts of the cyclone. And next comes a phenomenon called landfall. You might have heard this term also, landfall. Landfall is the place, it is the place where the cyclone enters into the land. Basically, the cyclone leaves the sea and approaches the land. And as it approaches the land, the place where the cyclone affects is known as the landfall. That is the place after which the cyclone dies. The cyclone fades away. So that is the final place where the cyclone completely outpours its moisture. Whatever moisture the cyclone had, it gives in the form of rainfall and huge winds, and everything occurs in that place. That is known as landfall. After the landfall, the cyclone has no more moisture and it fades away, because as it approached the land, it does not have contact with the sea, right? So that's why it does not have the moisture. And as I've told you, moisture is the strength for the cyclone. And as there is no moisture, the cyclone dies after the landfall. So this is landfall. Landfall is nothing but the final phase of the cyclone, where it completely gives away its moisture. After that, it no more exists. This is landfall. And there are some necessary conditions. There are some necessary conditions for the cyclone to occur. So without these necessary conditions, the cyclone won't occur. We need to know these conditions in terms of prelims and also mains perspective, because they might directly ask a question in mains, or in prelims they might confuse us with different conditions. So there are 5 important conditions for a cyclone to occur. For any cyclone to occur in the tropical region, there are 5 conditions. What are those 5 conditions? The first one is large sea surface with temperature greater than 27 degrees Celsius. Large sea surface with temperature greater than 27 degrees Celsius. This is the first important condition. And the second one is presence of Coriolis force. Coriolis, Coriolis. This is the second important condition for a cyclone to occur. This is presence of Coriolis force. Now, what is this Coriolis force? To say it simply, Coriolis force is the force that brings this cyclone from the sea or the ocean towards the land. This Coriolis force, to simply say, is the force that brings the cyclone from the oceans or the seas towards the land. So this force is needed for a cyclone to occur. This is the second important condition. The third important condition is pre-existing weak low pressure. Pre-existing weak low pressure. This is the third most important condition. That means we know that cyclone means it's a very low pressure system created. But before that, also there must be some low pressure already created in place. Only then we have the condition favorable for cyclone formation. So the third most important condition is pre-existing weak low pressure system. And the fourth one is small variations in the vertical wind speed. Small variations in the vertical wind speed. We know cyclone means the air actually rises from the sea surface to the top in a swirling phenomenon in a conical shape. So for that to happen, we need to have a small variation in the vertical wind speed, right? This is the fourth important condition. And the fifth important condition is upper divergence above the sea level system. Upper divergence above the sea level system. These are the 5 important conditions. There might be some difficulty in understanding each and every term in these conditions, which will be discussed to you later. But these 5 conditions are very important with respect to prelims and mains. So these are the conditions that make the cyclone happen. For occurring of a cyclone, these conditions are needed. So we have to remember these conditions. Now, apart from this, if we see today's article, it's saying that the Amphan cyclone will majorly impact the state of Odisha. But also, the very article says that there is a chance of recurving of the cyclone. Recurving of the cyclone, which will affect even West Bengal and Bangladesh also. Now, what is this recurving? This recurving is an interesting phenomena with respect to cyclones. As we have already discussed, after landfall, the cyclone has to die, right? But in some cases, after the landfall, the cyclone doesn't die. It because of the Coriolis force, which we have discussed, the force which moves the cyclone, because of that Coriolis force, after the landfall, the cyclone again approaches the sea, gains the moisture which it wants, and again attacks the land. This is known as recurving of cyclones. So after landfall, the cyclone will not die. It goes because of Coriolis force to the sea, absorbs the moisture. We have already discussed moisture is the strength for the cyclone. On the land, it cannot have moisture. On the sea, it will definitely have moisture. So it absorbs that moisture and again attacks the land. So in this context, we have to discuss about cyclone Titli. You might have heard about this cyclone Titli. In 2018, cyclone Titli had a devastating effect on the state of Odisha. Odisha was very seriously affected because of the Titli cyclone. Now, the speciality with this Titli cyclone is it was termed as rarest of the rare cyclone. Rarest of the rare cyclone. Now, why is it termed as rarest of the rare cyclone? Because after landfall, the cyclone had undergone recurving of cyclones. This phenomenon, it had undergone recurving. So the authorities were unable to predict that the cyclone would again come because of the recurving. Now, this had some impact on Odisha. So with an example, we can understand the impact of recurving of cyclones. So this is an important phenomenon. We have to remember this. So these are some important terminologies related to cyclone, and also cyclone has different names in different parts of the world. For example, in Indian Ocean, we call it cyclone. Okay. In Atlantic Ocean, they call it hurricanes. Hurricanes are also cyclones. But in Indian Ocean, we call it cyclone. In Atlantic Ocean, they call it hurricane. It's just the name. And in South China Sea, that is in the Pacific Ocean region, South China Sea, the East Pacific Ocean region, they call it typhoon. They call it typhoon. And in the Western Australian region, they call it Willy Willies. Willy Willies. So these are the different names with respect to cyclones. So there might be a prelims bit like what do they call cyclones in Atlantic Ocean, or what do they call it in South China? Match the following. These kind of things are possible. So in Indian Ocean, they call it cyclone. In Atlantic Ocean, they call it hurricane. In South China Sea, they call it typhoon. In Western Australia, they call it Willy Willies. So these are the four important names of cyclone we have to remember. Now with respect to mains perspective, we have to observe few trends. There are few trends with respect to cyclone. Now we know India has a coastline of 7,516.6 kilometers. 7516.6 kilometers. Coastline is there for India. On one side, we have Arabian Sea. On the other side, we have the Bay of Bengal. On one side, we have Arabian Sea. On the other side, we have Bay of Bengal. Now, if we see some trends, cyclones occur more frequently in Bay of Bengal compared to Arabian Sea. This is the first important trend which we have to remember. In Bay of Bengal region, cyclones are more frequent than the Arabian Sea. Right? This is the first important trend. The second important trend is Bay of Bengal cyclones have more intensity than the Arabian Sea. This is the second important trend. These two important trends we have to remember. The first one is Bay of Bengal cyclones are more frequent than the Arabian Sea cyclones. And the second one is Bay of Bengal cyclones are more intense. The intensity is more than the Arabian Sea cyclones. So these two trends we have to remember. But in the last year 2019, according to the Ministry of Earth Sciences data, there was an interesting trend. What was that? It was in the last year 2019, compared to Bay of Bengal, more number of cyclones occurred in Arabian Sea. Compared to Bay of Bengal, more number of cyclones occurred in Arabian Sea. In total, there were 8 cyclones in India in the year 2019. 8 cyclones. Out of these 8, 5 cyclones occurred in the Arabian Sea and only 3 in the Bay of Bengal. Now, this is something different to what we have generally observed. Generally observed, cyclones are more frequent in the Bay of Bengal region. But in the last year, we have observed that cyclones are more frequent in the Arabian Sea. So this was a different trend. So we have to keep this in mind. Like generally speaking, in Bay of Bengal, cyclones are more frequent and violent. But only in the last year, more number of cyclones occurred in the Arabian Sea. Right? We have to distinguish between these two. Now, why did this happen? So if we analyze this in mains perspective, climate change is the main culprit here. Climate change. It's because of climate change, we are observing many new different changes in the climate. For example, if we see the case of cyclones, usually we have to get more cyclones in Bay of Bengal, but we got it in Arabian Sea. Why? Climate change is one of the important reason, right? So now, what is this climate change? Climate change is nothing but abnormalities which we are seeing now because of global warming. Because of the greenhouse gas emissions like carbon dioxide, methane, and many more, because of those gases, global warming is taking place. Because of the global warming, climate change is taking place. Now, what is the impact of this climate change on the cyclones? We have to know this in mains perspective. The first one is intensity of the cyclones is increasing because of climate change. Intensity of the cyclones is increasing. Second one, number of cyclones are increasing. More frequently cyclones are occurring. And the third one is more damage to the ecosystem. Like the intensity is so high, the frequency is increasing and more damage is occurring. And especially for a country like India, where we have 7,516.6 kilometers coastline, such a long coastline, definitely climate change induced cyclones is a major threat to India. Because we have a very long coastline, climate change induced cyclones are really a threat to India. Now, how to solve this issue? There are 3 approaches required to tackle cyclone effectively. 3 approaches. The first one is cyclone preparedness. Cyclone preparedness. That means we have to prepare ourselves even before the cyclone attacks us. As a part of this cyclone preparedness, 2 to 3 important points are warning system. We have to have an early warning system. Even before the cyclone comes and impacts the communities, we need to have a system which predicts and makes the people alert. So we need to have a warning system. We need to generate sufficient awareness among the people, the gravity of the situation, so that people are more aware and take better measures related to cyclones. And the third one is vulnerability assessment. Under cyclone preparedness, we also need to do vulnerability assessment. That's nothing but we have to assess what all areas are more vulnerable to cyclones. Which are the areas which have more chances of cyclones? We have to identify those areas and we have to evacuate people from them and we have to take necessary sufficient measures. So this is cyclone preparedness. The second approach is cyclone mitigation. Cyclone mitigation. After preparedness, the second one is cyclone mitigation. That means first thing is we have to prepare ourselves before cyclone comes. The next thing is we have to reduce the damages because of cyclone after the cyclone comes, right? As a part of this, we have to make resilient infrastructure. Disaster resilient infrastructure. This is an important term. Disaster resilient infrastructure. That means infrastructure, the housing, the roads, the buildings, everything have to be made strong enough that they can withstand the impact of cyclones. This is called disaster resilient infrastructure. And the third approach is relief and rehabilitation. Relief and rehabilitation. After the cyclone, we need to have necessary infrastructure for providing food, safety, and homing to the people who are affected due to the cyclone. This comes under relief and rehabilitation. These are the three approaches. The first one is cyclone preparedness. We have to prepare ourselves. Second one is cyclone mitigation. We have to reduce the damage as much as possible due to cyclone. Third one is cyclone relief and rehabilitation. So this should be the approach, right? So these are some topics and important terms related to cyclones. And one more thing is, in today's paper, you can see that there is alert system by IMD. Now, who takes care of the cyclones in India? It is the IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, IMD. This gives the forecast related to cyclones. This works under Ministry of Earth Sciences, and it gave orange alert to Amphan Cyclone, orange alert. So there are four types of alerts. The first one is yellow alert. The second one is orange. The second one is red, and the other one is green. So depending on the severity, they give it. Green, there is no severity. Yellow, some severity. Orange, some more. Red, it is dangerous. Green, yellow, orange, red. This is colored assessment by IMD. So IMD is the body which is responsible for predicting the cyclones and assessing the damage.